First one, perhaps I can aim this at Rico primarily. What is your favourite resource to give out, and also your favourite resource structure, as it were, to use, which may lead us on to one of your handouts?
Great. Well, look, the favourite resource to give out is whatever on creativity is the right one for the moment in time. So there's no doubt at the moment, the Eric Liddell one for the Olympics. Everyone loves the Olympics. They've heard of Eric Liddell. Do you know, I've not had anyone say no. I say, well, can I give you a flyer? So that's the creativity of at Easter, my daughter and I gave out a little cancer book because of so you just pick something that's appropriate for the cultural moment. In terms of the one that I use just over here, now I'm going to do this at Adam, where's the church? Where are we going to be tomorrow? So
you're going to be at Horham Baptist Church at 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Horham Baptist tomorrow at 5 o'clock if you're around, if you're not watching the football. And we're going to, but I don't know if you can see it, but this is what I'll do tomorrow over 45 minutes. But I often say to people, let me give you the Bible in 2 minutes. Can I give you the whole Bible in 2 minutes? That's the pain line. And I mean, if someone said to me, would you do the Quran? I can do the Quran in 2 minutes. I'd go, well, yeah, okay. I mean, so I do that, and here it is. Here's the Bible in 2 minutes. God, that's the crown. By the way, you've got these. Can you see the outlines? We've given them all to you. You've got the outline. You might want to trace it with me. But God, that's the crown made man, and he put us into his world. So box one, God's made us. It's God's world. And all the gifts out the window, fun, family, friends, falling in love, food, fitness, they're all a gift, but we're to live under God's authority in his world. But that's not the way the world is. What we do in God's world is we put the crown on our head and we ignore God. And that's what the Bible called sin. We say, actually, I'll be God. And if I want to be God and you want to be God, what happens when we meet? Now, there comes a day when God, he never stops being God, actually says, you're going to be held accountable. So there's a day of judgment when God will say, did you know me? That's box one. He's made us. And have you had your sin forgiven? And that's box two. So God's made us. We've sinned. There's a day of judgment. Wonderfully, I mean, that's true, but miserable. Wonderfully, it's not the whole story. In his mercy, God sent a man who lived absolutely under God's law, but I often do this in a different color. He died on a cross. So why did he die? And the answer, of course, is for me. But how do you know it's true? I know it's true because God raised him from the dead. And the resurrection proves that he's God, he's judge, and he's alive. So what will you do in your life? You can either say, no, I'm going to live my way in God's world, or no, I'll live God's way in his world under the cross through the forgiveness he offers me. And then I'll do this tomorrow in Horham. I have 6 different uses of this. So first of all, it's an outline. So, you know, if someone says, why do you go to church? I train people to say, well, actually, I go because I think it's God's world. I think he made it. I don't think we relate to him as we should. I think one day he's going to ask us about that at the end of our lives. Wonderfully, he sent Christ to die so that we can be forgiven. He raised him to show it's true, and therefore I choose to go. Secondly, praying with the dying. So a girl called Kathy in my church family, her father professed faith as she prayed with him. She prayed this with him. So he was on his deathbed, and she said, Lord God, thank you for Dad. Thank you so much. He's loved me so much. But we're all sinners, and we've not lived as we should, and there is a judgment to come. Lord, for Dad and I, we thank you that Jesus is the Lamb of God who died for the sin of the world. Thank you that he rose to give us hope. We now place ourselves in his hand. And he'd been totally anti-faith. And do you know what his last words to her were? He said to her, John 3:16.
Wow.
I think he was converted. But anyway, another one is marriage prep. So I do the marriage prep here. I say, God's given us the gift of marriage. He's given us children. He's given us the gift of sex and each other. It's wonderful. Marriages break because people put the crown on their own head. So selfishness breaks marriages. I'm actually accountable to God for the way I treat my Lucy, my wife. People aren't disposable, and nor are marriage vows. Wonderfully, Christ died so we can be reconciled to each other. So the Bible says, bear with each other, forgive whatever grievances, forgive as the Lord forgave you. So the 2 key phrases in married life are, I'm sorry I was wrong, that's okay, I forgive you. when we get married, we ask God to help us. And then in our marriage, we decide to live God's way in his world, not our own way. So that, so you can do, I can go on and on. I'll do it tomorrow at the session. But I find this one tool of 6 boxes just is a brilliant way of training people, but also of them getting it out. Now, just to say, with that outline, a guy called Philip Jensen started teaching it in Sydney as a creed. So it was part of a discipling course. And halfway through the course, people came in and said, oh, I'm using that to evangelize my friends. They didn't even write it for evangelism, but it's an amazing outline, particularly if you've got dyslexia like me. I love the pictures. People for whom English is a second language, this is brilliant because the Crown, the Man, the World, they all get that. So it's a wonderful tool. If I'm leading someone to Christ, I go through it with them. I say if they're I go through and get them to score themselves. Then I say, A, do you admit you've sinned? B, do you believe Christ died for you? C, will you count the cost? D, will you do it? Will you come to faith? So I lead them like that. We'll do more of that tomorrow, but just to say, it is just that tool. It's that tool I use all the time for training people.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rico. 2 Ways to Live booklet available, Good Book Company, and I think in a range of different languages as well. So have a look at their website. That resource is there. And on the bookstall as well. So if you want to grab some copies, then please do so. Question, Adam, perhaps I can just put this one to you. Should the church be undertaking more missions locally when there are so many unsaved in the UK, and also when there seems to be this developing hunger for spiritual things in the UK?
I think the church, it depends what you mean by the church. I think if you mean, should the church organisation be arranging more events, possibly that's the case, but I'm less convinced by that. I think that's often a byproduct of a way of engaging people with the gospel that we did historically. There's a large portion of the world, of our UK, who are never going to come into our church doors. Whatever events we do, they just won't come in. So if what we mean by it, though, is should the church, as the body, the people, be more eager to reach out with the gospel? Very much so. I think that's part of the thing. I think the challenge for us sometimes when we come to days like today is that we go, evangelism is really important. The church that I go to really should start doing more things to fix this problem. And it's a case of going, actually, we as a church should find our place in that and seek to do that as best we can. And that is to reach out to our neighbours with the gospel as best we can, and to use things like 2 Ways to Live or whatever we can to do that. I think there is a growing hunger. I think there's as Rico said earlier on, there's a increased hostility towards the gospel, but also a great hunger as well in lots of people. And I think that's because the idea of the kind of the world's gospel of you will find contentment in just being true to yourself is actually disorientating and debilitating. It just doesn't work. And I think actually what's happening now is people are beginning to see that if I have to define who I am, that's a frightening prospect. Because I feel different on Monday to how I do on Tuesday and then on Thursday. And if I've been sold an idea that I can go and change the world, if I end up, no offence to anybody here that's a TA, but if I end up as a TA, I feel actually, am I actually making a difference to the world? I've been promised that I should go out in the world and change it. And here I am with 30 children and I'm helping them read and write. In a sense, we expect too big a thing of ourselves and it puts too much of a pressure. I think actually it's far better to recognise we are in God's world and where he's placed us, whether it be as a TA or whatever we're doing, the people around us are there for us to connect with, and we should be looking for ways as individuals to be the church scattered. In Ephesians 4, isn't it, is where he says that the church has been given, the leaders are there to equip the saints for ministry. I think actually sometimes we'd rather if we just let them do it all.
Yeah.
I'm aware I'm a pastor saying this. It's like me saying, I do enough work. I work 1 day a week. But it's like actually a case of going, no, we as a church are far more effective if we as a congregation at Horham of however many, 100 maybe, go out and send out. Each individual can have more conversations than I could ever do in a working week. So yes, we should be doing more to reach out to our communities as we can, as the hunger's there. Still do stuff as a church, definitely. But as a church body, sent out, scattered, is where I think the ministry is going to be more effective now.
With that emphasis on personal evangelism.
I think in this culture particularly, because I think if I'm able to, particularly in today's society, to share your story is a really powerful thing. So if you can say what Jesus has done for you, nobody can say that's not true, because you can say, well, no, but it is true. It's my experience. There's far more ability to be able to do that. than if you're saying to them, come and hear my minister who you've never met before, come and tell you what you've done wrong and how you need Jesus. It's far more impactful, I think, to do both and. It's not an either or, it's a both and.
Yeah. Thanks, Adam. Dave, do you want to jump in there?
Yes, I just know about our particular area, so let me give you some figures from our area. We've got about 10,000 people who live in our area, 100 people in our church. That's 9,900 who aren't in our church. If it's all down to me, then it's going to take me, I did the maths once, about 194 years, and I haven't quite got that, even if it was one person a week. Now, if everybody in my church got involved in talking to one person a year, then the maths says that it would take about 6.5 years if that one person became a Christian and then they got involved. So I think it's got to be individual people getting out there. I've got this little saying in my mind. I'm trying to push it forward as a vision for the church. I'm not quite there yet, but what my longing is for our church is that our aim is that everybody in my area gets to hear about Jesus from someone who loves them and him. Not to tell them everything they know to be saved, but at least to say, yeah, I really care about you. I want to help you. I want to be your friend. And I think Jesus could really help you. And then they might need some help in explaining the gospel. So then they can bring them to something, or we can do Christianity Explored with them, or 2 Ways to Live, or whatever. But I think that's doable. Yeah.
I love that phrase of Jews for Jesus. Let's make Jesus an unavoidable issue. Let's make Jesus an unavoidable issue. So I think that is that.
Yeah, it's helpful. Anything you want to add on that, Rico?
No, I think that's great. I think those two phrases, come and hear, go and tell, summarize it. So let's always be thinking, okay, let's be set up to bring people, but go and tell, because the pastors will have a breakdown. That the people who are coming to faith, the ones I see coming to faith, have someone journeying with them. Now, I reckon as pastors we can journey with 3 or 4, but no more, if it's really going to be in their lives. So what I'm trying to do at my church, Judy is bringing her cousin Alan. She's 79, he's 81. Kalia is bringing someone at a dance school called Jenna. They're both 19. But I am doing so much to encourage Kalia and Judy. Do you see what I mean? So let's celebrate the people doing it and have them as an example to the others. It's not just me doing it, but so I'm going to get Judy up to interview her. It's amazing. Her cousin Alan, he's an atheist, but he comes to everything. I think he's lonely. But I mean, he just comes. So brilliant. So let's celebrate the passionate individuals doing it, and then they model what it is to journey with someone. But I think the people coming to faith, humanly speaking, have someone alongside them.
Yeah. Just kind of linked to that, we then talked about perhaps then a personal evangelistic opportunity leading to a Christianity Explored group. Do you find Christianity Explored, one question's been asked, does Christianity Explored work best one-to-one, small groups, or large groups?
Well, we're trying to use it to model all of those. So even if you're on a one-to-one, you're hearing the guy, maybe you watch the film of the talk, and look, it's great when there's a group, because I think you're teaching people church. The danger is if you just do the one-to-one, when are they going to learn church? Yeah. And church is together following Jesus. So I do want to try and get them into a group. And often in London, you get these people who've quite successful, and they'd like you to be a personal spiritual coach, but they don't want to do church. Yeah. But they like to have their personal coach. So I do want to be feeding them into church. Because actually, when you're sitting there in a group and there's a granny there and she said, yes, both my sons have died of cancer, you suddenly go, oh my goodness, how do I do life? The lessons that the different generations can teach are so critical in following Jesus. So I want people in a group as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Do you want anything to add on that?
I've never had the privilege of leading Christianity Explored in a large group, because I've never had that many people wanting to do it. I've led it in small groups, and I love doing that, that sort of level of intimacy where you can talk about real life situations in one group, but I'm sure that can be replicated in large groups, breaking down. I've done Christianity Explored in a very informal way with individuals. I remember a lesbian lady who's an alcoholic in a pub, and she suddenly asked me some questions. And I didn't have any booklets, I didn't have a video, but I had the model of Christianity Explored in my mind.
Yeah.
And so I could go straight to Mark 1, and I could go to Mark 2, and it was just there. And she wasn't saved, but I just loved that model being fixed in my mind, so I could then take her through it.
It's not dissimilar to that framework, is it? That's the thing.
It's very similar to the framework, and I think it's so important to have something that's ingrained into our thinking that's a useful framework that we can then verbalise in different situations.
Just to say, with Christianity Explored, let me give you Mark's Gospel in 10 seconds. It's about the identity, the mission, and the call of Jesus. So 10 seconds. Every verse in Mark's Gospel is either about who is Jesus, or why did he come, or what does it mean to follow him. So then people think, well, I can do that if it's just 3 words. And the 4th word is blindness. So everyone in Mark's Gospel is blind. The only person who can see is blind Bartimaeus. Everyone else is blind. So it's the journey of blindness to identity, mission, call. And you could give me any verse in Mark's Gospel now, and it would be a drama about blindness to one of those 3. So Mark's Gospel is that simple, 3 words. So I think that's...
Yeah.
And I am so grateful for Rico and his work on that, because that has been ingrained into me over many, many years. Yeah. Identity, mission, call. I just think that's so helpful. So thank you very much, brother.
Yeah. Anything?
Nothing helpful to add?
No, okay. I think the beauty of sometimes of a small group compared to one-to-one is that you will get people in that small group asking the questions that other people want to hear. I think that's the only other thing to add. If you've had a large group, then in a right way, I'm spiritually jealous. But I think in groups that can be helpful. But in my experience with Christianity Explored, it can be used very well on a one-to-one basis as well, with a guy in a pub, with even on 2-to-2 or whatever works. But it's having that framework in our minds, which is so very, very helpful. Next question, just to pick up on something I think that you touched on. How would you reopen a conversation with someone who previously shut it down?
Well, I'd say, can we reopen the conversation?
Okay, next question.
And if they go no, you go, well, we're still mates, let's go and play some golf. But I mean, I think that you do ask. But certainly once we get to the 50s, I always say to them, by the way, I don't look in my 50s because my hair's good and I've sacrificed my body for my face. But I do think, I say to them, look, we're in Sniper's Alley. So in the 50s, I'm losing friends. And, do you want to talk spiritually? If they go no, you go fine. Yeah. But I think it's saying, are you thinking about spiritual things at all? If they go no, it's fine. Exit. But, go back to celebrating and serving. We've just got to keep giving them the opportunity.
Yeah. What do you find are the key themes when witnessing to those from other religions? Does somebody else want to kick us off with this? What are the best ways in, the best things to communicate?
I'm in a conversation at the moment with, and I've told a few people about this, a lady in Vietnam who is searching for something and has had a lot of Muslim influence in her life recently. And it just amazes me how knowledgeable a lot of her Muslim contacts are about the Bible, or at least they think they are, and they speak like they are. And so with her, and she told me that she was seriously thinking about converting to Islam, I said, look, I can't critique the Quran for you because I have read bits of it, but I don't know much about it. But I do know about the Bible, so let me tell you about Jesus. And actually, John's Gospel is not the only Gospel that says Jesus is God. And she had a New Testament, so we went through Matthew and we went through Mark, and we looked at lots of things, lots of places where the deity of Christ is made clear. And she came away saying, do you know, actually, I'm going to listen to you tell me about the Bible now, not my Muslim friends. So I think telling people just what the Bible says, particularly for her, that was something that...
And if I may say, what I will often do is sorry, let's get back here, the 2 ways to live outline with them. So I'll often say, here's the Christian faith, and the point at which I want to focus is box 4, because C.S. Lewis was asked, what's unique about Christianity? And he said, that's easy, grace. So whatever religion they are, I want to talk about grace. I want to say, it's not by my performance, it's Christ's. There was a Muslim guy I spoke to once, and I explained grace to him, and he went down on one knee, and he said, "Oh, if that was true, it would be amazing." Wow. And then he stood back up again, and he said, "But it's not true." So you want to talk to them about grace. It's not a four-letter, it's not a two-letter word do, it's a four-letter word done. Yeah. So if I'm talking to them, I'm trying to get to grace, because that's what's extraordinary. It is the scandal of our faith that we are declared right with God, past, present, and future sin. Yeah. So I try and get that in place. Box 4 would be the one I'd go to. And we can agree, often with Muslims, I'll do box 1, 2, and 3, and we're not far off each other. But you get to box 4, and then the resurrection, the proof of box 5. Yep.
I think that's a really good place to stop. We want to finish on time. A few things just to say, and then we'll sing our final hymn. Just another thank you to all those who have served us, whether that's in speaking, running seminars, or behind the scenes. Thank you, Rico, so much for all your ministry today. We've greatly appreciated that. Let's show our appreciation. Thank you. My one problem today has been that every time you said write that down, I've been furiously writing, then you've gone on to the next thing. The good thing is everything's been recorded today, so do make use of those recordings. We'll circulate those to make you aware when those are online. But
I'm going to get one or two things cut out, but that will be all right. Yeah.
but let's take the opportunity to listen to them again. Let's pick up the teaching. Let's go through it again. Let's take it into our hearts and into our lives. Feedback forms at the back. Do please give us your feedback. Thank you very much for that. Adam, do you want to just give us a plug for Foundations 25, please?
So next year we have John Hindley coming to join us. John has written a number of books. I suppose probably most popular book he's done was a number of years ago called Serving Without Sinking.
Yeah, excellent.
It's a really great book. He's going to be coming along to do something along the lines of that, enabling us to think about why and how we serve, not only in our church but in our communities, and how we do so in a way that is not just a sprint and we're done in a few years and burnt out, but actually over a long period of life and ministry. So that's the focus. There'll be a number of seminars about different ways to serve and in the church and local areas.
Can I just say, we did John's book as a staff at All Souls, and I think it was the best book we read together. We used to read books together. I think the best one we read was that book.
Yeah, it's great. So if you turn over the back of your programs, it's on the screen. Look at that, 28th of June. I didn't want to say the date in case I got it wrong. 28th of June. It's going to be here, Lord willing.